He has been at the helm of the Toronto Symphony Orchestra for long enough now, 14 years, that the trouble it was in when he took over seems like just a distant memory. But as Peter Oundjian prepares to leave his post amid a month-long tribute by the TSO and his many fans, there's little doubt that his innovative programming and audience outreach were key to reviving that venerable cultural institution, both at home and abroad. Joining us now for some parting reflections, Peter Oundjian, music director at the Toronto Symphony Orchestra. So good to have you back in that chair.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Just before we chat, let's show the folks what you do, okay? Shall we? Sheldon.
Absolutely.
Roll the clip, please. That's lovely.
Vaughan Williams.
You love him, don't you?
I do.
I just happen to have here in my hot little hands, what do we have here?
Vaughan Williams, a brand new album released by Chandos.
Why is he one of your faves?
Well, many reasons. First of all, his music is exquisitely beautiful. It also takes me back to my days in England. But perhaps the most important reason is that Vaughan Williams and I went to the same school.
Ah, did not know that.
We did not go at the same time.
I would think not. No, I would think not.
But he was born in 1872, and that was the year my school, which is called Charterhouse, moved from London to Godalming, which is in Surrey. And so in 1972, when I was in high school, we had a huge celebration, both of the anniversary of the school and of Vaughan Williams' 100th. And so we played Vaughan Williams till the cows come home.
Right, but it's got to be more than, okay, that is an interesting little historical footnote there, and the fact that you do share England. But there's more to it than that about why he speaks to you so deeply, right?
Oh, there's a profundity in his music, and a depth and an excitement and a beauty and a reverence and a nobility. And I mean, this music has everything. He's really one of the greatest composers of all time.
There is another Englishman that I think you also have a little something in common with. He may be your cousin. You know who I'm talking about?
I think you might be talking about Eric Idle of Monty Python.
Unbelievable that you two are related, because all of those things you just said about Vaughan Williams, I think, are not appropriate to say about Eric Idle.
Although very good musician. Eric's a very good musician and loves very serious, beautiful music, yeah.
When did you first realize you had a very famous cousin?
That could be an extremely long answer, because to be perfectly honest, I had no idea he existed until I was 11. That's a long story, and it has to do with my mother and his mother both being orphaned at very young ages and going off in different directions. And we only discovered that we had several other cousins when I was 11. I'm the youngest of 5. And I think part of the reason was that Eric he'd emerged as a creative artist and a comedian. He was doing something called Do Not Adjust Your Set with several of the other Monty Python guys, which, believe it or not, was a children's show. So because he was emerging, my mother thought, oh, I think I'm going to have to tell him who he's watching on TV. And that's how it happened. And we did not actually get really close, because we didn't have much of an opportunity to, until probably about 10 or 12 years ago, when Eric kept saying to me, we've got to do something on stage. And finally, as a result of all those conversations, he wrote Not the Messiah, which we premiered here in Toronto probably 10 years ago.
Nice. I do want to take you back further, actually, to childhood time for a moment here, and talk about, do you recall when you first actually remember thinking, that's music, it's beautiful, and it speaks to me in a profound way?
Probably too young to really remember, because I was one of those very lucky people who seem to be more rare nowadays, unfortunate to say. But classical music was around me all the time. Our father loved music. He played music all day long. He also played the piano, and we had 2 pianos in our living room. Then my sister started playing the piano. So I cannot really remember the day I fell in love with the idea of music. I was probably found silence more forbidding than the idea of hearing classical music. So to start playing the piano when I was 6 was a natural thing, and then I realized the violin was my instrument.
Well, that was my next question. So well, obviously with the 2 pianos there, that made sense, but how did you get from there to the violin?
Well, I had a very, very close family friend who was a great violinist. His name was Manuk Parikian. He'd been concertmaster of the Philharmonia Orchestra under Karajan. Great violinist, and he would come and stay with us sometimes, and apparently when I was very small, they would say, come on, it's bedtime, and I'd say, I only go to bed if Uncle Manuk will come and play the violin for me. And so the violin was clearly an instrument I loved. And it was also that there were too many pianists in the family. I needed to do something different. And so when the opportunity arose to play the violin, I seized it immediately. And it seemed quite easy. I mean, not easy, the violin's never easy, but it was fairly natural for me to put the bow on the string and start to vibrate and make a singing sound.
Until it wasn't, because you had to give it up at one point, right?
Many years later, in my late 30s, by which time I'd played almost 2,000 concerts on the violin, which, you know, I'm very grateful for. Yeah, I had this focal dystonia develop where I'd lost control of the sort of motoric control of the fingers. And I realized that this was not going to come back easily. But another door I felt could open at that point because I'd always had an interest in conducting and I'd studied conducting. But I never felt in my 20s, oh yeah, I want to be on the podium and tell everybody how I want this Brahms symphony to go. I was actually much happier having played those 2,000 concerts and absorbed so many musical ideas to then say, okay, now perhaps I'm ready to share my idea of interpretation with a large group of people.
You must know Leona Boyd.
Yes.
She had the same thing, right? That dystonia?
I believe so.
Yeah.
And in fact, Leon Fleischer, who recently played here in Toronto, and then we took the performance also to Montreal and Ottawa. He didn't play for many, many years because of focal dystonia, and there are many, many cases of it.
Here's a bit of an odd question, but what separates a great conductor from just a good conductor?
Probably a great conductor is one who, for whatever reason it is, gives you absolutely no choice but to play a certain way at every given moment, that you know exactly where that conductor wants the music to go, exactly the character of the sound, and the tempo is almost second nature because it all has become about the interpretation and living the moment. A good conductor is somebody who is easy to follow and efficient, and the orchestra's comfortable, but it doesn't go far enough beyond that.
I should have set this up by saying that will be the first of several odd questions coming at you now. So here's another one. By the time we saw you off the top there, doing your thing, conducting, the orchestra sounds magnificent, you've clearly rehearsed, you have gotten it to a point where you're content to show it to the public. At that point, does the orchestra still really need you up front doing your thing?
At times, no. And in fact, one of the keys to conducting is to know when they don't need a lot of information. Because if you keep supplying information that they don't really need, you won't have as much effect when you finally turn around and say, now here's a moment where we really need to share something important. So you have to figure out what the pacing of this information sharing needs to be. And sometimes you let them go. And right now I'm doing Brahms' First Symphony, and when the last movement theme, that gorgeous theme comes, they don't need anything.
So what do you do at that moment?
You feel the bliss of the moment.
Just minimal gesture?
You show a line. You just show where the line is going, and you shape the phrase as they shape it. And they know it's one of those moments where they say, oh, he really trusts us. He really respects what we can do. And there's something very important about that.
Don't misunderstand these questions, because I'm not trying to push you out of a job. You're leaving anyway, but I'm saying, if, for example, the concert were to start with you getting out there and just, for 10 seconds, setting the pace, and then you walked off and you said, okay, guys, you're on your own. Take it to the finish line. Could that happen?
It would depend entirely what the piece was. There are some pieces which are sort of a motu perpetua. For example, they could play the Marriage of Figaro overture with one gesture. Because somebody's always playing the rhythm. And they just listen to each other. when you're conducting that, you're just having a bit of fun, really. It's almost more to say to the audience, listen to that. You know, quite
You're
honestly,
directing the audience
right.
to where they should be paying attention.
But if you want to play Mahler 9 without a conductor, you'd have to rehearse for about a year.
Okay. Is there music? I mean, I guess as the maestro, you get to choose what you want to do, and you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. But is there music that you actually prefer not to do?
There are, you know, we always like to say when people say, what's your favorite piece? Our answer is always, oh, my favorite piece is whatever piece I'm playing. Right. But it's not completely true, obviously. Sometimes you have to play something and really try to make sense of it, even though it doesn't necessarily speak to you with the immediacy of something that you absolutely love. And then sometimes you commission a piece and you don't even have time to absorb it enough to feel like you really know what statement to make. I'm just being totally open now. It's inevitable that that will happen. But the key really to everything you do is to give it your absolute 110%. Mm-hmm. So you should never have anyone think, you know, he didn't look really that interested in that piece. That'd be a disaster.
Gotcha. Okay, time for some politics here, okay? Time for some politics and controversy, because the TSO has been involved in some of that over the years. And I recall a time 3 years ago when you had invited a pianist, Valentina Lisitsa, am I saying her name properly? Mm-hmm. Who had some tweets about the Russia-Ukraine war that some people were very offended by, and then she was disinvited to participate in a concert. Question. In your view, should the political opinions of an artist be a factor on whether or not they get invited to play with the TSO?
If they clearly display hate speech, you know, just without any argument in anybody's mind, that's one thing. That is very much open to discussion. In the case you refer to, that was the entire debate. I decided that this was a legal debate, and it was entirely a management board decision to deal with. Artistically, I know Valentina. I've worked with her. She's a very fine pianist. And it was not a moment for me, in my judgment, to stand forward and say, I don't care how you judge what she said in these tweets. I believe in her as an artist. I think she should play with us. Because it had gone actually beyond that level of discussion. Mm-hmm. And, you know, looking back on it, I'm not sure how we could have dealt with the situation better. But, you know, many people would have their opinions. It would have not have been a disaster if she'd come to play. Some people would have had a problem with it. But, you know, that happens. When we did Not the Messiah, you know, there were people from the Catholic Church who were offended by that. I understand. But, you know, so occasionally you do things that other people disapprove of.
Well, there was another one. Your fellow conductor, and you're going to have to help me with his last name, Valery Gergiev, is that how you say it?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well-known Putin supporter, did a performance in Toronto last year, despite the opposition of LGBTQ critics. He did get to perform. Was that okay?
I think it's okay. And I think it's absolutely okay that people make their statements against his views and against who he supports. That's the world we live in. Free speech, state your opinion. But should we not have the artistry of Valery Gergiev based on that relationship? I'm not sure that he himself has ever made strong statements in support of that opinion, which is held clearly by Putin and others in Russia. So
do you kind of like it when the orchestra gets caught up in some kind of international intrigue and because it brings a lot of publicity to what the orchestra is doing? It gets messy, but
it's not something I look for, obviously. But you know, it's part of the world we live in, and you have to be prepared to stake your position and say this is fine. It's an open debate. That's very healthy.
4 years ago, you were in that chair because we were here to celebrate your 10th anniversary with the TSO. Here is a little snippet from that conversation. Sheldon, go.
In fact, the LA Times reported a couple of years ago that we have the youngest average age audience of any orchestra in North America.
What's the number?
Which is 124. No, the number, it's 49.
Well, that's actually pretty good.
You know, well, first of all, you think, oh, it should be 28 or something. But realistically speaking, 49 is actually a pretty fine average age for a symphony orchestra, because obviously a lot of people, once the kids have left home and they're out of college, now they have the time to go to the symphony.
How much progress have you made on that? And never mind you, but the entire symphony orchestra world made on that challenge since then?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the most recent numbers, actually, but, you know, there are some things that have changed which have further reduced, I would say, the average age of an orchestra attendant. And that is that we do a lot of films nowadays. We play film scores and show the film behind, which, you know, I've actually never even witnessed one of these things, believe it or not, because I don't conduct them. I mean, that's something that certain people...
I have.
Oh, you've witnessed it. Okay.
You guys did Jaws. It's phenomenal.
Isn't it incredible?
Yeah, it's a great experience.
I'm just thinking, I wish I could go, because what a fantastic, exciting, visceral experience to not just hear the music, but see it being created by individuals. That attracts a very young audience.
What about sound check? TSO sound check. I mean, that's something that's sort of designed to get young people in as well. What's that about?
Been great. Well, it started just as I arrived, 14, 15 years. I mean, I became music director in January 2003, actually, so that's quite a while ago. The idea of sound check was to have a kind of a club. People would register on the internet, and once you're a member, you could sign up for up to 2 tickets for any concert. They were $10 each at that time. I think they're a little bit more now, but the great part of it was that the second person could be someone of any age. So you could bring your grandparent or your great auntie or whoever you would like to. And that made for a lovely family evening as well. But we've had, I mean, I don't know, probably 100,000 members at this point. It's been a great success.
Seattle Symphony does something called Untuxed, with the idea being you don't have to dress in a tuxedo to go to a show, to a concert, excuse me. How important is it in your view that concert goers not be intimidated by or be out-pretentious, if you know what I mean, by what they're about to see?
Well, you know, I've always been the kind of anti-elitist when it comes to this kind of thing. That's why I welcome people when they come to the hall, and I speak a little bit about the music or whatever it is. I speak about the guest artist or how I met them.
That's great. Most conductors don't do that, but I really love that.
That's right. It's funny, Untuxed, it's very clever, but I have to say that the only problem with it is that it implies that actually everybody would be wearing a tux or might be wearing a tux. I'm not sure I've ever seen anyone in the audience wearing a tux, and I certainly wouldn't particularly want to unless it's a very special evening. But I mean, we welcome our listeners dressed in messy jeans, t-shirts. I don't care how they come. Just come and enjoy the music and listen quietly and absorb what's going on around you and enjoy the other people's enjoyment, which is part of the magic of it, after all.
There is magic, but it also can be an intimidating set of circumstances, right? There's sometimes you don't really know if you're supposed to applaud or when you're supposed to applaud, or, you know, I get the end of the first move. I don't applaud at the end of the first, second, or third movement, but it's okay to, you know. Yeah, well, how do you deal with all that?
I've dealt with that over the years because I don't necessarily approve of what is only about a 115-year-old tradition, which is to get to the end of an incredibly exciting first movement of a Tchaikovsky violin concerto or something, and this incredible excitement has taken place, right, and virtuosity on the instrument, and you come to this rousing end, and everyone goes,
you're supposed to sit there and do nothing, right?
Coughs.
That's right.
I mean, it was ridiculous. Yeah. You know, of course people applauded in Tchaikovsky's time, and a movement like that, I totally encourage it. At the end of a slow movement, when the atmosphere is extraordinarily beautiful and intense or calm, whatever it happens to be, but the silence then is sort of part of the end of the movement, and we don't need applause at that point. So I have a way of, I think, of sort of controlling when I'd like people to applaud and perhaps when not.
You are, as we come into the home stretch here, you are kind of a citizen of the world in as much as you're from here but grew up in England, you've got a place in Connecticut, you obviously traveled tons over the time of your musical career. Where are you truly at home?
Well, I'm definitely at home in Toronto. I mean, it's a city I was born in, you know. Now, our son is living here. My nephew is with the Maple Leafs organization for the last couple of... Well, he's captain of the Marlies. In fact, Ben Smith is his name.
Okay, didn't know that.
Great hockey player, won a Stanley Cup with the Chicago Blackhawks. And so, I mean, we've had family around. My sister lives here. One of my brothers has lived here intermittently over the years. So, I mean, we have a tremendous amount of family life here in Toronto. But home is actually New York, Connecticut. And it has been since 1975. And that's where I'm resident in the US. You know, although I have various citizenships. That is...
Now, what have you got?
Well, I have, of course, Canadian.
Yes.
And US and UK. or what will soon be English or something.
Not EU anymore, or whatever. You have a series of farewell concerts coming up at the end of June that are going to be, and I was telling you earlier, I bought my tickets for this a year ago because I didn't want to get shut out. You're doing Beethoven's Ninth. You got a free concert coming up as well called Thank You Toronto. That's on Friday the 22nd of June, 12:30 p.m. What are you going to miss about this job?
Oh, a lot. Really a lot. I mean, it's been kind of a life's work in 14 years, but also one of the most fortunate things that could ever happen to anybody, that you're offered an opportunity to do in your town of birth, to do this kind of work that has the potential at least to have a strong impact on so many people and on the cultural life of the whole city, in education, in terms of meeting all kinds of people, some of whom have come from Europe or South America alone and have felt so alone in Toronto. I meet people like this that come up to me and say, I discovered the Toronto Symphony 8 years ago, and it was the first time I really felt like I was at home in the city, and I come every month or whatever it is. And then, of course, all the wonderful patrons, audience members. I mean, it's just been an extremely rich experience for me. But of course, there's also some of the work that is very painful and sort of endless. And the worry about the finances, will you be able to raise enough money? And you know, will your programming do well? Sometimes you come up with a program, you think, no, people are going to love that. And it doesn't sell so well. And then you have to push it some way. And other times it's very gratifying. You walk onto the stage and say, wow, this program is actually pretty eclectic, and look at all these people. The New Creations Festival, very exciting. All this new music that we've done over the past 14 years, all the composers that have come to visit, tremendous energy around that. I will miss that very much. And I will miss the players, because they're a wonderful group of people. They are so warm, they're really like a family, and it's a joy to be on the podium in front of them.
Well, we wish you great good luck with whatever comes next. Do you know what that's going to be?
For the moment, I'm doing quite a lot of guest conducting all over the world, some very interesting places that I haven't been able to go to all these years. I just also stopped my music directorship at the Royal Scottish National Orchestra just a couple of weeks ago. So it's really the beginning of another new chapter in my life.
Very exciting. I can't thank you enough for what you brought to Toronto, to the province of Ontario, to Canada, and if I may get personal for a second, to me, because I've loved going to your concerts for the 14 years you've been here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.
That's Peter Oundjian, soon to be the outgoing director, musical director of the Toronto Symphony Orchestra. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you so much.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.